Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Strange Normal. My name is Brad Burnham. We talk about the stranger things that happen in your normal life to give you a biblical understanding of what's going on. And there's going to be a lot going on. In fact, there is a lot going on. So hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell icon so you're notified when things like this happen. Oh, hit that like button too, because that helps us out a lot. In fact, it brings in more live viewers, which we want. We want to spread this message as far and as wide as possible. We have quite a lineup tonight, and I wasn't able to get, I don't even know what I'm saying here. We weren't able to get the complete, map tonight of everything that was going to be done, but I guarantee you, you're going to love tonight's episode. It's going to be a wealth of information. Let me just bring in our guests tonight. Hello, everybody. Let me introduce you one by one. At the top right is Chris Lang. Chris Lang is a producer. He's produced a number of amazing documentaries. I'm gonna get through this, and I'm gonna have you all talk individually in just a moment, guys. On the bottom left is Stephanie. Stephanie's been on our program before. She has quite a story. In fact, she's featured in one of Chris Lang's documentaries coming out here pretty soon. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And last but not least, of course, is Debbie. She is one of our amazing contributors and Patreon members. She does a lot of the research on this channel, and she's really good at it. So we are thrilled to have her because she's done a major study in something that parallels a story that Chris Lang has already talked about in one of the one of his documentaries. And tonight, man, where do I start? Oh, you know what I should start with, guys? I'm going to start with the news because the news is fascinating. Just recently, CNN aired a video from Ryan Graves. And you've heard of Ryan Graves before because he has been on, well, we've talked about him on different podcasts here. And what he has said is probably nothing new, but he is so far out there in talking about this that CNN's picked him up, and we should at least listen to see what mainstream media is talking about right now. So let's watch that. Let's see what's going on.
That Chinese balloon that floated across the continental U.S. got a lot of attention, and somehow it eclipsed other, weirder, unidentified flying objects.
Nickel 6-1 Tango, object over. Oh, got it! Woohoo! Roger, there's troubleshooting.
Did you box moving target? No, I took an auto track. Oh, okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at it fly.
Former Navy fighter pilot Ryan Graves has a new article in Politico titled, "We Have a Real UFO Problem, and It's Not Balloons." He joins me now. Ryan, I'm with you. I mean, you've seen weirder things than a Chinese balloon while you've been in the sky, yes?
Certainly. We've seen things that we haven't been able to explain as simply a balloon. And as we've been talking about the various objects that have been shot down over the U.S., there's been a pretty clear bifurcation between what we've been calling a Chinese balloon and what these other three objects are. And while we don't know what they are, the fact of the matter is we should know what's above our head at any given time, whether it's a national security issue or whether it's a scientific question. We need to figure out what's above our heads.
That video that we just showed, was that from your squad?
Yes, that was in 2015 while we were aboard the USS Theodore Roosevelt off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida. We were doing training missions, preparing for our combat deployment. We recorded that object as well as other objects that were operating in our vicinity on a regular basis. And we simply didn't know what they were, but we did know that they were a safety hazard for our air crew and for our training missions. And we've been looking for the right way to report and deal with those issues ever since. With the Americans for Safe Aerospace, we're going to be pushing legislative action to ensure that the proper policies are in place so that pilots and aviators, both in the military and in the commercial markets, feel comfortable reporting these things, whether, again, it's a national security issue, we need to pay attention to make sure there's not security gaps, or whether there is something unknown, we need to inquire on that.
But Ryan, what was that thing?
That's what we're still trying to figure out. So what we know is that it wasn't one of our aircraft that we were operating within the vicinity of. We're fairly certain that it's not a foreign adversary at this point, but it still remains in the unknown bucket. And the primary issue here is that there are enough things that are in that bucket of unknown that the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office within the DoD and various senators and congressmen and women are looking into this matter from the angle of national security in a way we haven't had before. With the recent shootdowns, we can see just how serious of an issue it is. Even if they are just balloons can still be a national security issue when they're overhead our national security facilities and airspace.
But these things that you've seen, and in fact, I should let everybody know, you saw them a lot. This wasn't just a one-off once in 2015. You saw UFOs often. And these things, correct me if I'm wrong, they do things. They have sort of technology that you all couldn't identify.
It's not that we were just seeing them out there and somewhat identifying something in the distance. We're using a multitude of sensors on our aircraft and also distributed across multiple aircraft and different platforms that are detecting these objects within a sensor network. And so when we then correlate those radar tracks with our infrared camera systems and eventually move in closer to detect them with our eyeballs, we have high confidence in those track files and what we're experiencing. And what we're experiencing are things that we're really not sure what they are at the end of the day. They're performing a number of behaviors that we don't recognize, such as the ability to stay stationary in very high winds with no lifting platforms, no surfaces, but also to maintain speeds of 0.6 to 0.8 Mach, which is upwards of 350 knots. And they can do that for many hours on end. We don't have the ability to do that in our aircraft. And we simply don't know who's operating these or what their intent are.
I think we have another clip of one from your squadron of them seeing it, as you said, in high wind and operating differently.
Look at that thing. It's rotating. Oh my gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
And so when you say that you want to get to a point where people feel comfortable reporting them, do people not feel comfortable reporting these sightings?
They still don't, and I'll only speak within the aviation community, but it's a big risk to go out publicly on this topic. At the end of the day, if you're going to highlight yourself, at least in the military aviation communities, for something like this, there's very little upside for you. We're very busy aviators in the U.S. Navy, Air Force, and the military in general are very busy just doing their regular job, and they're not equipped to go out and do research on these mysterious objects. On the commercial sector, people work for a very long time in a single career at a single company, and they're a single signature away on a medical evaluation to say they're unfit for flying and to lose that career. So there's really just very little motivation to speak publicly about this, especially when it's been communicated by their employers and historically that this is a somewhat off limits topic.
Mm-hmm. And last, Ryan, do you have a theory on what these are?
Well, I have a theory of what they're not. And I do have a method, I think, of trying to figure out what these are. We know that we can detect these objects. We are starting to recognize as a government and as a society that we have an obligation to figure out what these are to ensure safe flying. And so I think we can figure it out. I think that is an answerable question, although not quite yet.
Ryan Graves, thanks for sharing all this with us. It's really fascinating. And obviously, we do need to get some answers about all of this that the balloon has exposed. Thanks so much for being here.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
The balloon has exposed. There's so much in that clip I could say, but I like that MC, who is the corner of terms in our chat, has dubbed this. We call it RMFA, Rapid Moving Fallen Angels. Love it. Love it, MC. You know, we actually call it that. And I'm gonna before we jump into the meat of our program, I think it's good to watch this clip that we've watched over and over and over again because it's relevant and it explains exactly what is going on here and sets the understanding that we have on this channel from a former occultist, Roger Murnau. You can watch his full documentary. It's all on YouTube, 3.5 hours. But watch this clip right here.
And the priest told us, could I have a little bit more of your time? I want to tell you something very fascinating. He says the grain plain, the master's grain plain, for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So we continued, after we expressed ourselves that we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of the spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grain plain is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because it says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet unless something seriously proper is done to avoid
it, he says. Chris, I'm going to talk to you first. This is a fascinating topic because what I believe we're seeing right now is we're seeing the beginning of this spiritualism become more and more prevalent in the West. And I say the West because the East has seen a little bit of this spiritualism already as in different forms, but we haven't been too obsessed with it as a Western culture. But I think you've brought out in your documentaries that it's becoming a more and more of a greater issue. Isn't that right?
Yes, Brad. I really appreciate you inviting me to be on your program tonight. It's a blessing to be here. That's right. In the West, there's been a very scientific orientation to science and Christianity up until recent decades, of course, was dominant in the West, and the occult and things of a spiritualistic nature were very normal in other countries in the East, as you said. And one of the things that we're starting to see, though, is a convergence. A new normal is coming to the West, where people are increasingly rejecting Christianity and the idea that there's an absolute truth in the world, that there is a higher power that we're accountable to, and who's given us a law to live by that is for our own good. And by rejecting this concept in the West, people are basically starting to practice increasingly all kinds of different manners of mysticism, which allows them to enter an altered state of consciousness. And of course, your channel is very much about aliens and strange normal, right? People are starting to experience all kinds of things in an altered state of consciousness, whether it's psychedelic drugs, whether it's meditation. And this is kind of the theme of our new film, Mystified, that's coming soon.
I was just going to ask you about that. You coming out with a new documentary here very soon, and it's always fascinating because every time I watch your documentaries, I learn something new I hadn't seen before. You do so much research on this stuff, and it's so fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit more about it without revealing too much? Because I know you don't want to give everything away.
Well, first of all, I just want to say what an honor it's been to work with Roger Murnau's family since 2014. I've become very close friends with Roger's daughter, Linda, and his grandson, Michael. And I'm just so amazed at how the Lord has led me in the development of, at first, what was going to be one documentary ended up becoming two, that became now three. And this last chapter is called Mystified, and Mystified is kind of like the unpacking of a lot of the things that people have seen in the first two films. The first film was called Beware of Angels, and the second film, Charmed by Darkness, which was all about Roger Murnau's life and legacy And you just saw a clip, the viewers just saw a clip of Roger a few minutes ago. Mystified is essentially an unpacking of that includes several real life stories. Stephanie, of course, is one of the stories in this film, who practiced spiritual formation, a form of Christianized mysticism, for 9 years until she was brought out of that movement. And her husband, Dondi, was a very close friend of Roger Morneau's. And for those watching, Brad, Roger Morneau was a demon worshiper. And the significance of Roger Morneau's journey and the things that he heard when he was in his secret society in regards to mysticism, in regards to Satan worship, in regards to the deceptions coming in the last days, are very relevant and are being manifested through these practices, these mystical practices of altered states of consciousness, so that people don't need God. They can actually tap into their altered state. They can come in and go deep within themselves, so they believe, to find answers to life's deep questions, to find secrets to the universe. And actually science is coming alongside now and investing. The federal government now is putting money into the science and research of psychedelic drugs. And our new film is actually touching on that as well.
Wow. Yeah. And these drugs, especially, I've discovered just even by talking to different individuals. And by the way, just as a side note, ladies, if you would like to, please ask questions. I don't let us take up the whole time, because
we won't.
We're
giving you time for a minute.
Good.
Checking out the chat too.
Watch the chat, because people actually have a really good insight. But I was going to tell you, Chris, Mikey, a friend of mine from work, and we actually went out on the town and did what we call a single man. Where we go out there, a single man, excuse me, that's something different. We go out and do I'm lost my mind. What is it called? Basically, we interview people downtown. And we were asking them questions about what they think on video. And so I'll release that here pretty soon. And it's interesting, because we went into one of the more new age shops, and the person wouldn't reveal this on camera. But what she said was she has experienced this form of spiritualism only while she does DMT. And maybe I shouldn't say that in YouTube. Maybe they're going to cancel me now. But it's a form of a drug that is dangerous. And it can really open your mind to things that shouldn't be there. And so I'm not sure. I've only seen a portion of your documentary so far. And I'd like to really dive deep into what you've studied on this whole concept.
Yeah, DMT is the active element that is in LSD, which was popular in the 1960s. DMT, some researchers believe that our human brain actually produces in one of the glands in the brain, naturally produces DMT. And so this helps to explain some of these near-death experiences people have when they think they're leaving their body and flying off somewhere. There is an element that apparently is triggered when people are medically dead or lacking oxygen. Something fires off. It's fascinating, but you're right, Brad. DMT is a very serious chemical, and this is actually one of the chemicals that's being researched right now. And by the way, there's a lot of people who are starting, like famous people, celebrities, billionaires like Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla, is promoting psychedelics. And
wow.
Because it's interesting, these alien experiences that are increasingly happening in the West. People believe they're getting secret information. Depending on who you talk to, you hear these stories, and And these people who are researching psychedelic drugs, and we'll be talking about this in Mystified, is they believe that there are 4 mental health problems that DMT can actually solve. And one of them is depression, another is anxiety, another is PTSD, and a fourth is addictions. And so the question is, if the devil isn't real, there's something in this plant that supposedly is healing people. But if the devil is real, then there's a whole different ball game going on.
Fascinating. Wow. Do you guys, ladies have any questions? I'm fascinated by this. If you don't, I'm going to go ahead and play his trailer for Mystified. I think it's a really interesting trailer. And if you don't mind, Chris, do you mind me playing that right now?
Oh yeah, I'd love to see that.
Okay, let me make sure I have the right one up here.
While you're looking at the right one, we have a comment in the chat from MC. I like how they put it. DMT, a one-way ticket to Demon Town. DE capital MON capital Town. DMT. There you go.
There you go. That's the one. All right, here's the trailer. Check this out.
And I would just take my deep breath, say my word, my mantra, and go into the silence.
Wait a minute, this doesn't sound biblical to me. I set up a little prayer and I said, Lord, give me the faith of Roger.
The truth is the problem, and those who speak up for it.
Your trailers are such a tease, Chris. I want to know more, but it's like, yeah, just tell me what's going on here. I saw and recognized Stephanie in there. You guys worked together on this, huh?
Yes. I am so honored to finally, Stephanie has been so patient with her story. I'm so honored to be able to work with Stephanie on this film. Stephanie is actually an associate producer on Mystified, is lending her time and her input, feedback on the storylines and the structure of our film. And it's just a joy. The way that the Lord has been leading the unpacking of all these storylines. But Stephanie's story that you saw in the trailer, Brad, right there for the viewers, her story represents the Christianization of mysticism. You hear the term Christian mystic or Christian witch or Christian shaman. These are oxymorons. They don't belong together. But depending on who you talk to in Christianity, they if they're from a Catholic background or if they're someone who's practiced mysticism for a long time, they think those two can go together. They can be copacetic, but we're going to reveal the history of mysticism in this new film that's coming soon. And it's just going to be amazing how there's nothing at all in the Bible that promotes or teaches the idea that you should pursue an altered state of consciousness in order to talk to God. Wow. And Stephanie can talk more because she was there. She's the person who experienced it. But I'm so thankful that Stephanie is telling her story, because this is increasingly becoming, the Protestant movement is not dead. There's a lot of people out here in the world who still understand, what Martin Luther and William Tyndale and some of these reformers from 500 years ago, their message and their movement is still alive, even though there are many who have capitulated and given up and decided, you know what? The protest is over. There's no one else out there. But God is not finished. God still is trying to reveal that there is a people he's empowering for these end times, these last days deceptions. There will be a people who stand up and explain what's going on, but only people who actually are filled with a knowledge of the Bible and the Holy Spirit to give them that wisdom. There's no other way that people will be able to understand these aliens and these. And by the way, there's real power in mysticism. I mean, there is power there, but it's not Holy Spirit power.
Right, right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because although we do typically just talk about the spiritualism as in the extraterrestrial, as they say in the narrative, but really what it comes from and what it all is a new age style of religion that is not so new. Mm-hmm. Stephanie, can you talk to us a little bit more about that? What is that, since you were involved in that?
Well, from my background was from the mystics, the Catholic mystics, the Desert Fathers, the Desert Mothers, it's that sort of thing, and to a very old way of praying that we somehow lost. And it's a way to become closer to God, to have a more intimate union with Him, with God. So that was where I was. I was looking for a deeper relationship with God. And I was all about prayer because of my testimony where I'd been. I couldn't pray for my grandfather. And so God brought me back, and then I was all about prayer. Well, this was just another way of, I thought, growing closer to Christ. But wow, yeah, seeing that trailer, even now, every time I see it, it's so powerful. And my brain, because of the years of mapping, it's a constant pull. When I hear that trailer, I really have to put the guards up and ask God to protect my mind, because my mind just will go there. And yeah, it changes your brain, but God recreates and protects. So
absolutely. You know, Rick in the chat is asking, why is this a Western thing? Why is this primarily happening in the West? And if you've seen my sermon on this, I bring out an image, and it shows from 1900s until now where all this spiritualism is happening, where all the activity is that has been reported, and it says it all, and it shows the map, a heat map. It puts little dots on there, and it almost perfectly outlines the United States primarily, which is really interesting. And so why is this happening in the West? I have some theories. What do you guys think?
My theory is that this was born a Christian nation. And where else does Satan want to get hold of but Christians? So there's a reason.
It's also one of the most powerful nations. And so he would like to use this nation as everyone.
Also,
go ahead, Deb.
It's also one of the most self-absorbed nations. Very self-absorbed.
That's true.
That's
is true.
And since it's so powerful, though, too, that he can use this to make the rest of the world wander after something that he desires, the beast.
We were raised up for a purpose. That's true. The frogs. We get the frogs, people.
Yeah, Revelation 16. We talked a little bit more about that in Starfall. I mean, I'm going to plug that shamelessly real quick here. If you haven't seen Starfall, go to starfallmovie.com. It's a documentary. It's based the whole channel off of this, and it helps everyone understand exactly what in the world we're talking about and what's going on. You're going to want to see that first. Anyway, Chris, I want to get back to you. Sorry to hang you there for a second, but such a fascinating topic, and I'm really grateful you're continuing this. In fact, I hope you continue doing documentaries like this, and this isn't your last one. Maybe you want it to be your last one. I don't know.
Well, to be honest, this has been a long journey. 2014 is when I started working with Roger Morneau's family, and so I am asking God for some fun material. It's pretty heavy, you know. This is very serious stuff. It's not fun and games, but it's definitely been rewarding, Brad. Because before we started filming today, you mentioned something that really resonated with me. You said, there are people reaching out and letting me know how important this program that I'm doing is meaningful to to viewers. It's helping them learn the truth. And those kinds of emails, those kinds of texts, those kinds of things that people are posting really help to affirm the work, the effort. It doesn't show in the bank account, but it certainly, for every message that comes through, if you believe that Jesus Christ is the Savior of the world, he either is who he claimed to be, or he was the greatest liar that ever lived. He can't just be a good person. And if Jesus really was the Savior of the world and died for everyone, then every message that comes to you and me, just one should be enough to sense that calling was worth it. So I'm honored to have the opportunity to be able to share what God has been showing me, because it's been mind blowing. The way the dots are connecting, yes. even on this journey in this third film on spiritualism. This is just another way of because let's just, for the viewers to understand, mysticism by itself it's never standing by itself. There's always another piece that goes along with it, and that is the immortality of the soul. This idea that when you tap into your altered state, you can part from your body and go somewhere. It's the idea that you're practicing death before you die.
Wow.
And this is what the ancient Greeks believed, and Plato and Pythagoras, and it's all in our new film to show people that this idea that you don't really die when you die, and that mysticism and altered states of consciousness, it gives you a foretaste of what death is like in the afterlife. So these two things go together, and they go all the way back to the original lie in the tree. There were two lies there. There was, you will not surely die. And the second lie was, your eyes will be opened and you will be like gods, knowing good and evil. So your eyes will be opened. Suddenly it dawned on me, when you hear people in the New Age talk about being awakened, or they talk about being enlightened in Buddhism, in Zen Buddhism, this enlightenment, your eyes are opened. So when you tap into this altered state, it's supposedly your immortal soul, or this part of you that doesn't die.
Wow, that's huge.
It's interesting.
Go for it.
So I was just thinking, as Chris was talking, for this lie that they continue to want to perpetuate, that thou shalt not surely die, this prepares you to die. And then when you think about yoga and the yoga practice, that prepares you to die so you can take on your next reincarnation shape easier. So you can meditate when you're dying as well. So you can have a peaceful death. It's like they're obsessed with death, but they tell you won't die.
Yeah. But what's striking to me at the end of the day, Brad, is that, what is the ultimate purpose in reincarnation and living in the hereafter? What's the point of it all? Just because you're alive and you have a higher state of consciousness. Well, the promise of Christianity to me, and the confidence of knowing someone who died for me, is that there's a relationship. There is actually a person who knows me and who loves me and is walking with me every day. not just now, but is promising to be alive for eternity. So this lie of the immortality of the soul and reincarnation and mysticism that allows you to tap into this enlightened state, your eyes are open, is so deceptive because it's witchcraft. Witchcraft, the essence of witchcraft is that you break away and make up your own rules. So to be like God is to break away and make up your own rules.
No.
And that's the essence of witchcraft.
And
But
the occult, do what thou wilt.
yes,
Right.
but that is very cold. That's a very cold environment. I don't care what people say. There's a reason why people who are at the very upper echelons of society in Hollywood, the celebrities who they have everything, but they have nothing,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a coldness in that.
Right. Right. It's someone used to say to me that was up very high up. They used to say it's very lonely at the top, but not only is it lonely when you dig your heels into something that you know is not good. Not good. I mean, you see the characteristics of it and you continue in that. You dive into something that is, it will cling onto you until you find that truth, that righteousness, which is in the Lord Jesus Christ. And
Amen.
I could talk to you about this for hours and hours, Chris, and I want to. And it seems like we've only talked for a few minutes, but I also want to show another documentary that you've done previously, which leads into our next topic, because I think it's fascinating to see there's two different things happening here, and primarily there's one deception that I want to bring out in this next documentary. So if you don't mind, I'm going to load that up. And we'll watch that now.
They had prayed to see angels.
Yes, sir, and they have the car stop at 10th and Ranch, Michael.
No one knew that I was a disciple of the ascended master, spirit guide Joel Kull.
I could pierce that veil and see these spiritual beings that I thought were dead ancestors who have passed on and now have received these bodies.
If it was too dark, I'm like, well, I don't do dark. And all those books made me feel good.
Who do you serve? I said, no one. He said, no, everybody serves somebody. Now, who's it going to be? I said, well, myself, I guess. He said, so be it.
There is really no escape because there is nowhere to escape to.
I could see their faces because they weren't covered. What have I got myself into?
Fascinating. That documentary is one that you did, and it's already out, if I understand right, Chris. It's from a few years ago, and it's the first story in there is just fascinating. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the title of this documentary, "Beware of Angels,"
That's it.
Is taken from Roger Morneau's final book before he passed away. And this was a book that Roger Morneau did not want to write. It's a story, a true story about a Bible study group that started praying and asking to see their guardian angels, to get messages from heaven. And one of the group leaders started getting messages about 3 months after they were praying to talk to their angels. And it was a 5-year journey that ended up in a murder. 2 sisters in the group ended up murdering someone else in the group who was a very close friend. And it was it was through the messages that were coming through from these angels claiming to be from heaven, who were directing these sisters to murder. They didn't use the word murder, they used the word destroy, because supposedly this person who was murdered was totaled. This word the angels were using, these fallen angels, was the idea that someone's soul, once again, the immortality of the soul deception, someone's soul had been removed and a demon inhabited somebody's physical body. So they no longer exist, so you have to destroy them. This was unheard of in the 1980s. This happened in 1988. And this was the beginning of many kinds of strange, not normal, very strange things happening in the world. But it was the beginning of murders where supposedly a spirit told someone that someone else should be killed. That the devil made me do it.
Was this a physical manifestation? Did they see these things in their house, or was this voices in their head?
I went to the police department twice, Brad. The police gave me permission when they understood that I was working on a documentary about this, featuring this story. Of course, you saw in the trailer, you saw several other stories. This is the feature story in the film. So the police allowed me to come twice, and I spent 2 full days in the police department going through 10 different boxes of the murder case evidence. And, everything from the murder weapon to all kinds of folders and documents that were taken from the suspect's home. And one of the things you see in the film, Brad, is there were hundreds of pieces of paper that I saw, and I took pictures, and you see them in the film, where this group would actually, the leader of the group would actually ask the angel a question. The prophetess, if you will, in the group would ask the question, and then someone else would then write down the answer in a different color of ink, the answer that was given to the woman. So it wasn't a physical being that appeared. It was typically a voice. Sometimes the group could hear the voice, but it was usually coming through like a channel or a medium.
Wow.
The Christian Bible study leader was actually a medium, getting messages from the other side, so to speak. In this case, it was packaged as an angel from heaven.
Wow.
Chris, I have a question. I was reading Beware of Angels again last night, just to brush up, and Roger mentioned that in the books or the notes that that these people were keeping, there were descriptions of the angels that appeared to them. So I thought it was both.
Yeah, there were some manifestations for some of the people, but not the whole group. The whole group didn't see an appearance, but the angel did appear to 1 or 2 of the people in the group, as far as I recall.
I just
but
rewatched
it really...
it today. I just rewatched it today, and it said that Jesus came to them and said that this is all fine, this is all good, and you should listen to these angels. Or actually, he introduced them to the angels, and the angels to his children. That was kind of...
And so they thought it was Jesus by the way he looked, then, I guess.
Yeah.
Or at least that he was.
Yeah. So one of the people in the group did see Jesus, got so big that he was taller than the house before he disappeared. Yeah.
So interesting.
So the fallen angels can manifest in physical bodies that are apparently human beings. They can manifest in any kind of atomic structure they want to. And of course, this is a lot what you talk about on this show, right, Brad?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
These aliens, I mean, they are super powerful beings. and they're beautiful. I mean, in their natural state, they're so bright. Roger Morneau said that when he was in the secret group, the priest said that one appeared to him, and he was so bright that he couldn't see to dial the numbers on the telephone after this being appeared to him. So in their natural state, because they used to live in heaven. So we're up against a lot, but I'm really glad that the God that we serve is actually the creator of these beings. So that's the reason why we're still here.
Right.
That's the reason why we're able to have this conversation without being attacked by these unseen beings, because there is a God in heaven who's watching over us.
I've heard that argument over and over again, that ufology says, well, if they are bad, we would have been destroyed by now. Not necessarily, because if there is truly a celestial universal of the universe court system, then we wouldn't be destroyed. And that's what Christianity believes. That's actually what Christianity believes. They believe there's a court case for God. He's on trial right now as to whether or not he created beings correctly. I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to. And Satan says absolutely not. And we are going through that quarantine phase because we're the ones that sinned. And so I think it's a fascinating topic. And I think we're actually seeing this. The whole reason this whole show came up, I hate to leave you, Debbie, for the last, because you're definitely not the least of this episode, but I want to talk about what you've been studying, because this is exactly the same from what I understand. I haven't read all your homework you've done on this, but everything that has been happening right now has been very similar to this story that Chris Lack outlined from the police station. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It was the Kyle Odom story. Yes. Yeah, that came up in the Discord, and I just kind of ran with it. Somebody posted his manifesto. And
how many pages was that?
22 pages, but only like 12 of it was actual his story.
Okay.
And really, and then he does a question and answer where he talks about how he views God, and just the whole thing.
Before you get into it, I forgot I had a clip I took off the internet from a news agency that told about of what had happened. The news doesn't really report on spiritualism very much. That's why it's so weird. And I always show the clips of them talking about UFOs, because the news is like, this is weird. We're not going to really mention the fact. Well, I'll let you go ahead.
Did you get the clip from the other lady whose son also did the same kind of thing before? Because I shared that, but that...
Maybe not. I might have not seen that, but I'll show you this one that I found so far. So check this out. All right. Why isn't it playing? Just a second. This is live, folks. Just a second here.
While you're working that out, I wanted to say that I was struck in reading that book how, Chris, you were talking about people being totaled who have a demon in them. And these people who were supposedly communing with angels and Jesus were told to go to the totaled people and steal from them and slash their tires. And it's like, these don't even match up with the characteristic of God. How did he treat Judas? He continued trying to woo him until the end. He never abused him.
That just shows you how far someone can fall when the lie is so beautiful, when the deception is so beautiful and so compelling that people can fall for it and be led down. It didn't happen overnight. That's the thing people need to recognize. With its Kyle Odom, I don't know all of his story. I'm looking forward to hearing Deb share about it. But this Bible study group, this murder happened after 5 years of deceptions, slowly leading them down a road, starting with Bible scripture. These angels were quoting and reciting scriptures like there was no tomorrow. And then you're special. We've got secrets for you. Only you're the only people in the whole world who know this stuff. And these angels were like making them feel important,
ego,
and privileged. And then, yes, building their ego up, and slowly
Special
they
gifts.
began to look for their answers more than they looked in the Bible for answers. And that's
And
when
those are
they
angels.
fell.
And the story of Kyle Odom is alien, and he doesn't even entertain the idea of spiritual beings at all.
Yeah.
And so it's all alien, but it is the exact same thing as everything that happened with these people in Beware of Angels.
Yeah, and so let's get to that. Let's get to that clip that shows exactly what happened to Kyle Odom, because you're going to see parallels to what Chris Lang just talked about. But before we go to that clip, I just want to ask that anybody that thinks this is an important topic that we need to discuss further, please consider supporting this podcast. Go to patreon.com/strangenormal and help us, because it really truly helps us. You also get access to the Discord. This is our Discord server. We have all kinds of stuff in here, from the latest stuff. You'll be up to the minute access to, we got many people helping us research this stuff and showing different things that are happening, sermons on this topic, as you can see in this section right there. You'll want to be a part of this. It's a pretty neat thing. Now, this is the clip that of Kyle Odom from the news. Check this out.
Benzie, thank you. Now to the latest on the search for the suspected gunman. His name is Kyle Odom, and police say he opened fire on Pastor Remington in this church parking lot yesterday. Odom is a former Marine and has won several awards. He's described as a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man about 6 feet tall and 170 pounds. Witnesses say they saw him leaving the church in a 2004 silver Honda Accord with the Idaho license plate number K578519. Police say people should consider Odom armed and dangerous.
Creme 2's Taylor Vito caught up with Odom's aunt over the phone today.
Kyle Odom's family did release a statement to the media. They've since asked for privacy. However, we were able to get in touch with Odom's aunt, who lives in Colorado. She says all of this has been a shock.
Well, I cried because I can't imagine where he is or what's going on.
Deborah Russo is describing the moment when she found out that her nephew, Kyle Odom, was accused of gunning down a local pastor in a church parking lot. Rousseau tells us that her brother is Odom's father. While she hadn't spoken with Kyle in a few years, she tells us that she considered herself pretty close with him.
There was just something about Kyle that I always liked. He was a good kid and smart, and then he went into the military.
Odom is a Marine and served overseas in Iraq. Russo tells us that was in line with their family. She herself was in the military, as was Odom's father. What Russo stressed was Odom's intelligence. He graduated from the University of Idaho with near-perfect grades.
He was an exceptional student, so all of this that's happening has just been very, very, very strange.
Russo said that this has been a major shock for the family. She's not clear what connection, if any, Odom had to Tim Remington. Police have said the same. Russo added that Odom was possibly suffering from depression, but wasn't likely addicted to any kinds of drugs.
That Kyle was a good man. He was smart. He was a little shy, but he was always very, very sweet to me. And so I hope that people don't judge him too harshly.
And like I mentioned, we did attempt to contact Odom's family that lives in Coeur d'Alene. They released a statement that said, in part, quote, "Our family is devastated by Sunday's events. We are praying for Pastor Tim, his family, and his continued recovery. We are also praying for Kyle's safe return and to get the help he needs." They then asked for privacy. Outside the Coeur d'Alene Police Department, Taylor Vito, Creme 2 News.
Fascinating. So, Deb, can you tell us a little summary about what makes this such an interesting story that they didn't mention here?
Yeah, they didn't tell anything about his manifesto. They just, write it off as, just complete mental illness. But it started out when he was under a lot of stress at university, and he was very intelligent, and he had a really heavy load, and so he started meditating. I don't really know how that came about, but he started to meditate. And in February of 2014, he was lying in bed and he was lucid dreaming. He felt he had left his body, but there was a blue light coming towards him, and he noticed that it was a being, and it was all about feeling. It was all feeling. He felt it was wrong, and that it was telling him he shouldn't be there, and then he felt like he should, um, go away. But then he was flooded with more feelings of unconditional love, and he was just overwhelmed with these feelings, and he thought it was a life altering situation, and it was, because then he lost all desire to meditate. He lost the memory of what had happened with this being. And he's writing all this. So he says this was against his will. He didn't want to not remember. Then he started just like acing everything at school. Nothing was a problem for him anymore. And
Really?
so, yeah, like he just breezed through everything. And so the way I looked at it when I was reading it, I really felt like, at that point, um, the demons, who he thinks are aliens, but the demons had wiped his memory of that and then proceeded to enlarge his ego and, make him believe that he was, had tapped into some super intelligence. And so he went to a graduate course in at Baylor, but he felt like he knew more than everyone. He felt like he was way beyond the professors, and saw flaws in the foundations of all these different theories. It wasn't just he was in genetics, but nothing. Eventually, it drove him crazy because nobody else seemed to be concerned that there were all these flaws. So
did they actually tell him these things that were contacting him? Did they tell him to go and shoot his pastor?
It was demons, but he felt like it was these Martian aliens that inhabit people. So it's exactly like what they were saying these people were totaled. That's basically, what the aliens were telling him, was that these people are not really people. They've been inhabited by aliens. So it's aliens that are telling him this stuff, and that these people are aliens. And so then he proceeded to shoot the pastor 6 times. And the pastor lived and forgave him. And it's the whole story is pretty amazing, because the pastor, I mean, he lived, and he totally understood that this kid had all these mental problems. Although, I haven't heard him say that he thought it was demonic, but everything about his story, because all through, there's 2 years.
Wait, before you go into that, I think Chris has a question for you.
Yeah. Did you see the commentary on? I briefly looked at an article where apparently this guy says that when he saw the pastor, it supposedly manifested, and then he drew a picture of what this alien looked like, that he saw for 1 or 2 seconds before it then went back to a human form.
Yes.
Can I show people? Can I show people that picture?
Nutty. And
Through
notice the eyes.
Through the strangeness of the internet, MC has sent me over the image just in time for me to load it up. So I'm gonna play that real quick here.
Thank you.
Thank you from the chat. Here we go. Isn't that interesting? So right now you can't hear the rest of the broadcasters on this. You can only hear me, but I can't even read this. Maybe you guys want to pause it and read it, but this is what he thought he saw. Very strange thing. I'm going to bring it back over now as we go back to our guests. Okay, we're back.
I think it's worth mentioning the pupils. They're not round. They're snake-like.
Yeah, and he said.
Go ahead. Yes, that's important.
He just said that he saw individual aspects at a certain, like he didn't see the whole face. He saw the eyes, or he saw the mouth and the nose, but not everything all at once. But the eyes were what stood out, which is the way it is so often. That their eyes are what stands out.
Fascinating. So is that pretty much the whole story? I mean, you were going to say other things besides that. What were you going to say?
Just that, eventually he was driven to attempt murder on the pastor. And so Satan convinced him that this man was an alien here to wreak havoc on humanity. So it is fascinating to have access to everything now. Because like his father tells, because they did Investigation Discovery did a whole episode on them. So I watched that. And so, like, when he tried to kill himself, he says that, because he tried to asphyxiate himself in a car. And so he says that the aliens woke him up and chased him out of the car. And so he couldn't even kill himself.
Oh, my goodness.
So, like, all throughout his experience, he's just being hounded. And so that's where I've got, like, Will Barron of The Deceived of the New Age. He talked about how the demons would hound him until he would write a check to the, place where he was worshiping at. And just like he would be hounded and hounded and hounded until he did it, and then he would have peace. And he knew that he was dealing with spiritual entities. He thought it was an ascended master.
That's from
Will Barron.
Yeah, Will Barron. But that's that clip that you're describing. I want to give credit where credit's due. Is from Chris Lang's one of his documentaries. One of the second, I think, trailer I showed.
Beware of Angels.
Yeah.
That
Amazing
was in
documentary.
Beware of Angels. Yeah, which I wasn't aware of when I was writing this up, so I just found it interesting, but I had seen it. And so, like he knew that he was dealing with spiritual forces. But this kid, Kyle Odom, they had convinced him, the aliens, the demons had convinced him that God did not exist. And so that's it. He says he goes through the traits of the aliens. They're megalomaniacal. I wasn't even going to try to say that one. But power hungry, obsessed with control.
Let me understand this. The demons presented themselves as aliens to convince him that aliens were in other people. So they were essentially saying, hey, you should go, I'm going to use the correct term for YouTube, delete these people, because we can't use the K word, otherwise we get demonetized. But so they were saying, go get rid of these people because there's ones like us in them. I'm so confused by that.
Yes, and that's the thing. It's Babylon, confusion, but that's what, he says Martians may have created humans, as they claim, but they are certainly not gods themselves. They are just another intelligent species that evolved on a neighboring planet. There's no God, there's no heaven, there's no hell. Earth is as close to heaven as we'll ever get, and we're letting the Martians ruin it, he says. So in the end, he couldn't have a being that was smarter than himself. It was his intellect and his just personal pride in his own intellect that really did him in, because he couldn't have somebody smarter than himself. And so he said, well, there's no God for sure, because that's what these guys, he wanted to not believe that there was somebody that was smarter than him. And then in the end, he's like, I know these losers aren't the gods, so because they can't be any better than me. So it was his inability to come to a point of submission to the Heavenly Father, in the idea that, there are two powers, and we will all acquiesce to one or the other. And sometimes people just have a hard time coming to the understanding that they're not the one that has these great ideas, or he believed that they wanted him because he was so intelligent.
See, and that's fascinating to me, because he was so intelligent. He was a very intelligent guy, but deception doesn't care about intelligence. it's a deception, and they'll figure out a way to deceive you, no matter if they use your ego, they use your intellect, they use your feelings, if they'll use your loved one. I mean, there's no holds bar to this, and that's why we have to have that connection. We have to be very close to Christ, and this, if you're just listening right now and you're just coming back to the church and you're like, man, this is serious. It is. This is actually what made me realize this is not fun and games. We're not just here on earth. Yeah, I was a Christian, and that's fine. I can still do what I want. That's not what's going on here. It's time to get real. And these things are showing themselves right now. And you gotta, I guess what you could say is, get off the fence, pick a side, choose ye who you will serve today. And so
the world is showing people that they can have everything that you can have via God the Father and Jesus Christ through these altered states without ever having to change and transform and have that transformation of character that the Lord wants to give us. And so if they can have everything without the work, because it's not easy to face your own demons, and the things that, whatever, that's not easy. And so people that will just dive right into these altered states and everything, because you don't have to concern yourself with
all these
who you really are.
Who you are. That's fascinating. Do you either you have any comments, Steph or Chris?
I do.
Yeah, Stephanie, go ahead. I definitely have some thoughts.
Okay.
The film Mystified is really the target of what Deb was just talking about. The target is that in order for mysticism to work, and someone claiming to be a Christian, they have to do something to Jesus Christ. They have to change him into just a man. They have to make him into just a human being who was just like us, literally just like us, who woke up to his divinity. And so he became a way shower. He became the person to reveal to us our own divinity. See, so that's how they twist the Christian idea of Jesus. And so Jesus just becomes one among many. He becomes one among Buddha and Confucius and
that's serious tickling
of
of the ears.
Yeah,
that's tickling the ears. Yeah.
And so the idea of who is Jesus and what is the nature of man, they go together, because if you don't need a savior, if you really are immortal all by yourself, then why do you need a savior who died on a cross? That it's totally irrelevant. But if you're wrong, then you've got issues. The God of heaven is,
and we know they are wrong.
Well, exactly.
We know that is wrong. Yeah.
And I mean, but before we started filming today, Brad said, you know what? We need to show that we have hope in the world, and that the message that I want to come through in this new film isn't doom and gloom. It's going to be, the evidence is here to show that the Bible is not just another book. The evidence will be shown that it is a supernatural book that gives the evidence that there is a God of history who knows you by name and who knows the future and who has your future, and he loves you eternally. And so that hope in a person, it's not just an idea, right? And I think that, Kyle Odom and this Beware of Angels group got so sucked into an idea that I'm a special person. And it's like, as soon as we take our eyes off of the creator, the one who made us, and that glory suddenly starts to look at me, and suddenly the mirror turns on me, and it's all about my afterlife and what I'm going to do. And, this all becomes about me, but that is a cold way to live. And I just think the message, Brad, is wow. all of these aliens, in a way, are kind of making our case for us, because it's a cold universe without the Creator, without the God of heaven who loves you.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Stephanie, do you have any? We're running on. Well, I'll just let's say this. Stephanie, do you have any thoughts?
That's okay. Go ahead. if you're on a time frame, it's okay.
No, I'm not. I'm trying not to say anything about time because of what we said in pre-show.
Okay. Well, here's the thing, Brad. I knew I should have gone before you, Chris. Chris has this beautiful way of just bringing everything we've talked about back to Christ, and bringing us to a higher level. So I'm going to take us back down.
Oh no.
So, I watched a podcast on this guy, Kyle. In the podcast, these two people read the manifesto. I would not suggest reading or watching this podcast. It was very colorful language that these girls were using, but I didn't have time to read it, so I listened to them. So it was pretty fascinating. I found myself feeling very sorry for him. To me, he seemed normal. Before when? Before he meditated. That was the entering wedge. And so after that, he never came back. He was the devil's playground. And Deborah said he tried to kill himself
Unknowingly.
3 times. Exactly. 3 times he tried to kill himself. And this was on the heels of going to spend a weekend with his parents and being tormented by these aliens. They followed him in the plane. They were in the coffee shop. They were outside the house. He could see them. They would sniff at him. And so that's how he knew that they were aliens following him around. Sniffing. That was how they differentiated themselves from humans.
Wait, what does that even mean? You mean like with your nose? Wait, so he would see these things and they would sniff at him?
And that's how he knew that they were aliens. But they were camped outside his family's house.
Oh, that's so
weird. They kept telling him, and on the plane where he sat, there was some man beside him. Same kind of thing, sniffed at him, and he wasn't getting the response from him that he wanted, so he put his hand on his leg. And then that's when the guy responded to this alien being. And so finally, he gets to his house. He's being just tormented by these people. They want him to go do something, to go to the church that he'd been attending. That's what they wanted him to do, go to that church. And finally, he's like, they said, if you don't, we're going to hurt your family. So he said, okay, to protect my family, I will go to church. And I don't think at this point he even knew why, right? You can correct me, Deborah.
Right.
But this is how he gained control. These beings gained control of him.
Wait. I'm not following. Well, just so I understand.
Yeah.
These demonic entities wanted him to go to church?
Go to the church. He'd been attending a church.
Okay.
What was the name of that church? Elevate or some...
The altar.
You showed, it was the altar. And he had some sort of relationship with this pastor. And the pastor had actually told him, you should be a pastor. So, and it was after that he shot him. But to take it back around, the torment that he was getting, he was having these female aliens attempting to pleasure him. This was unwanted attention, but he was getting that. He was getting tormented. To me, as I was hearing this, I'm like, this is MK Ultra right here. This is programming. And we know Satan does that to control, right? To gain control. So this is how he was he was trying to take tests, and he was still getting A's on his tests. I mean, this is a smart guy. This was a normal guy until he meditated, and then all of this stuff happened. And so to save his family, he went to church, and then I don't really know if it spoke to the gap, or they didn't speak to the gap between his going to church and then shooting him. But next thing you know, he sees the pastor, and he takes on this shape that you just showed a few minutes ago. And so he knew he wasn't a human.
So
he killed him.
They made him think that
shot him.
that the pastor was this being that had inhabited this body Kind of like
Yes.
similar to what Chris was saying in his documentary. They believed that these things had lost their soul, and so they had a demon in them. Very similar.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting how similar that story is? That's fascinating.
It is, and that he had no concept that it might not be aliens.
Yeah.
That
I
there
don't
was
think
even
any-
something else that it could possibly be.
But we become the devil's playground when we leave him out of our lives. When we don't choose God, him mean Jesus, sorry. But when we don't choose God, when we don't choose Jesus, then we are fodder for Satan.
Absolutely. You know, there's so much more to say here. I wanna give it back to Chris because I don't have Chris on enough. I think I should have you on here more because you are a wealth of knowledge. Do you have any final thoughts on that before I say a prayer, and maybe we'll go into and do a few minutes of post show for the Patreon team.
Thanks, Brad, for this program, for having me tonight. I'm just really thankful to be able to be a part of this. I would just have one more thought, and that is the emphasis that's happening mainstream with psychedelic drugs and through the meditation. And actually, this is what reminded me of this point that you'll see in our new film, and that is the emphasis by the shamans and the people that are facilitating these ceremonies. They will emphasize to the people that you have to surrender to the experience. Surrendering. And there's a continuity to it. First, they come and they tell what their intention is. And secondly, they're supposed to surrender to whatever comes through while they're under the influence. So there is a real battle going on. And they're being told that this is plant medicine. And whatever happened to Kyle Odom in that meditation, he surrendered to whatever it was because it was a beautiful deception.
Wow.
But it destroyed his life.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys, I appreciate every single one of you that have been on here. I want to go in and talk a little bit more about this, but I have to end somewhere. And so if you want to continue hearing more about this, please subscribe to our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/strangenormal. We will be here, and we're always here every Thursday night. We're a little early tonight, but every Thursday night around 10 p.m., maybe a little earlier. Just keep checking back. Check the community tab. There's a lot going on, so please continue. We love you. Take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for watching this segment. Subscribe to our channel and join us every Thursday night for more daily strange topics and more. Find us on Discord by accessing patreon.com/strangenormal. See you there.